Remember, there's some important information over here. You might want to give the video a quick pause so you can read through it.
Yo! Hey everybody! It's me, Sonic! Sonic the Hedgehog! Just here to remind you that if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button. And for even more amazing customs, don't forget to subscribe to Wakeangel2K1's. Because between you and me, they're way past cool.
Hey, you know what? There's a thing about Princess Sally. Over the years, I've made her so many times, but the funny thing is, I actually don't have one for myself. I mean, I have a bead sprite, and I have that cool statue that a fan of mine made, but I had never actually had a proper Princess Sally action figure to call my own for all this time. And I've always wanted one, but for some reason or another kept pushing it off. Well, no longer. Now, I'm making myself a Princess Sally, and it's just going to be something for me, and I'm going to keep it. You know, Princess Sally is a character that's had more character design revisions than I think any other character in the franchise. Even Sonic himself, who has like 4 or 5 different canonical forms at this point. So, yeah, like whether you go all the way back to the original Deke cartoon, or her brief cameo appearance in the Sonic Spinball video game, whether she has an evil twin, or is drawn in a slightly too realistic art style that gets raised eyebrows from others because she looks way more naked than ever intended, to when she grew out her hair to be super long, or how she ended up in the Super Genesis wave looking more like a traditional female Sonic character, you know, like wearing clothes and all that. And I didn't even picture a whole bunch of alternate looks for her, like all the parallel universe jokes, like Sally McBeal, Sally Moon, or Kaiju Sally, or the Sally from that was the bad guy from the G-Force team, like all that. There's like so many versions of her. Oh, and let's not forget that there are at least 3 distinct designs for Mecha Sally. And, like, I'm pretty sure there's at least a 4th one from an episode of the Sat AM cartoon where Sonic had a nightmare, which I think counts. But, yeah, that's a lot of different designs, aren't there? But, if you ask me, my favorite version of her would have to be this one. It was done after Ian Flynn took over writing for the comic, and it was basically Princess Sally in her Season 2 Sat AM appearance, but done up in an artistic style that more naturally blended in with the art style from the video games. Like, this is where I felt that Princess Sally truly fit in with the aesthetic more than anything else. Now, don't get me wrong, I never actually disliked most of Sally's designs. I'm just saying that this is my favorite, and if you ask me, it would be her definitive look. So, yeah, I guess it was kind of a spoiler because when I had that 3D model of her up, that was also a 3D model of her that was made for the comic book, one of its covers as I recall, which, you know, like, knowing that a 3D model of Princess Sally exists kind of makes me want it to be in a video game even more. But I digress. This is the version of Sally that's my favorite, and it's the one that I'm going to be basing my definitive action figure on. Now, for me, this all got started when I asked Corey SonicFan22 to make me a 3D model of Tails' head with no ears so I could print it. The reason I did this is because Tails' head is used to make Princess Sally, Bunny Rabbit, and Antoine de Coulier, so it's a head that I use really often. I in fact have a lot of headless Tails bodies because I end up taking this head off and putting it on someone else's body quite often. So I figure if I have this head that I can just 3D print, then I can spare a lot of more hard to find figures. And by not having ears, I can put on whatever ears I want without having to cut anything off, because it's a lot harder to remove it from a 3D printed item than it is off of the actual figures, because the plastic is a completely different consistency. So I gave it a quick print, and although the muzzle came out a little bit messed up, I figured, well, hey, I have this Tails head with no ears, and I'm not going to use it for anybody else right now, so I'm going to make myself a Sally. the first thing I did was actually make it into Sally, which requires a nose bridge, some eyebrow lines, slight readjustment to her muzzle, removing a couple of the cheek tufts, and of course smaller ears. Once all of this stabilizes, then I can sculpt on her big old giant hair, because you know, like Sally has that big old Lady Pompadour thing going on, which I always liked. So once it was painted up, like I couldn't, like honestly, it's hard for me to tell whether this is an actual Tails head or if it's one of the 3D printed ones. Like you actually have to get in really close there to tell the difference. So hooray, I'm calling that a win. I also didn't even paint the eyes white. That's just the natural whiteness of the plastic right there. I also 3D printed the shoes. It's a 3D print of silver shoes with a little bit of epoxy to be that thing on the top of her shoe that I think is supposed to be its fastener or just a decorative accoutrement. I have no idea. So yeah, that's 3D printing for the Princess Sally figure. Like again, this is all part of the long game of figuring out how to make customs using as few parts from official toys as possible, so I can keep costs down for my, you know, for my customers, the people who want to commission me, because they won't have to track down expensive figures anymore. That being said, the base figure for the main part of the body is Teela from the Mega Construx He-Man line. Yeah, I bought her quite a while ago. I liked how she has like skinny arms that don't have any armor or anything on them, so they're nice and smooth. She's not quite as blank a buck as the Dr. Halsey figure, but you know, like every part of her that isn't blank is going to be sculpted over anyway for the most part, so minimal changes necessary. Now, an awkward thing about Princess Sally, like, with all the time that I've been making Rouge, Rouge is a pretty busty character, but she also has that heart-shaped top that pushes everything up into a tight cleavage, so you don't really have to worry about sculpting the entire shape of her chest. Since Sally isn't really wearing anything, you actually have to concentrate on the shape to make a pair of actual naked boobs, which is actually kind of hard to do with this small scale. Like, even after all these years and all the times I've done it before, it's actually still pretty hard to do. And I want to give a special thanks to Gitz, who provided some botched 3D resin casts that they had made. And there were a couple of hands in there that was still in reasonably good shape, and I just touched them up to have a pair of hands without having to go into my fodder bin for hands. And in fact, here's a spot where I really truly prefer using Mega Construx figures over the Jazzwares figures, because it allows me to make a really good ungloved hand look without sacrificing wrist articulation. I mean, recall when I make Princess Sally's that don't have you know, with regular Sonic figures, you either still see a bit of the cuff left over, like if I'm using Silver's hands, or else I just have to completely sculpt the hand into the forearm so there's no wrist articulation. Here, I can have a hand that's not wearing a glove, but doesn't have a weird lump at the wrist, so it actually works really well. And this is where these figures actually work better than the Jazzwares ones. That being said, here is my completed Sally figure. A Princess Sally that's all mine and all for me. And yes, she's wearing a vest. It's just a little thing I cut out of craft foam, so it's nothing too special. It's just something I stuck on there. So yes, this is a Princess Sally in the definitive style for me, my favorite look for her, and made out of a base toy that I really like, and something that I will be proud to have on my shelf and will always be mine, and I'm not going to send her to anybody else because I didn't make her as a commission and she is mine. So yes, best princess is mine and mine alone. Alright, so thank you all for watching. This is Wakeangel2K1's, and I'm signing off.